Aaron Rodgers is officially on his way to Pittsburgh today to sign his contract to be the next starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers. And today on Steelers Talk, I'm going to let you guys know why I think the Steelers made the right decision at the quarterback position this year. Then we'll get into the wide receiver search. Now that Rodgers is locked up, what wide receiver is they going to add to this offense to complement DK Metcalf? There's some rumors that Terry McLaurin could be a possibility. We're going to be talking about that later in today's show, so make sure you guys stick around for that. But before we get into the content today to kick off your weekend, here we go, Steelers. There we go. Type those "here we go, Steelers" down there in the comment section if you love the black and gold and you are excited for the 2025 NFL season. So listen, guys, like it or not, Aaron Rodgers is the Steelers' QB1. It is now official. He'll be arriving in Pittsburgh today to sign his contract with the black and gold. And I got to say, man, there's been a lot of really good jersey swaps for Aaron Rodgers that have come out over the last 24 hours. This one might be the best one from Fox NFL here, where he's doing the little finger point, the classic Rodgers. And, I'm really excited to see how this whole thing plays out. Now, listen, guys, I understand a lot of people wanted to go the rebuild route this year. They wanted to draft a quarterback. They wanted to stick with Justin Fields. They wanted to trade TJ Watt, trade Cam Hayward, fire Mike Tomlin, completely start over with a new regime here in Pittsburgh after the complete collapse of the 2024 season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if the Steelers would have done that, I would have gotten behind it, all right? I would have been okay with the Pittsburgh Steelers embracing a full-on rebuild if they wanted to fire Mike Tomlin, if they wanted to draft a quarterback this year, yada, yada, yada. I would have been on board with that if that's the route that they would have taken. But that's not what they decided to do. They decided to keep trying to win now. They understood, hey, we've won double-digit wins the last 2 seasons with below-average starting quarterback play, and we've got one of the most cherished sons of this organization's history in Cam Hayward, who doesn't have a ring on his finger yet. So they're still trying to move forward. They know they still have an elite-level defense when TJ Watt is healthy. They know that they have a potential here with Mike Tomlin, who's now the longest-tenured head coach in NFL history, to still win here in Pittsburgh with him at head coach. So they decided to go all in here and try to win a Super Bowl in the short term. And if that is the plan, and that is the plan for Pittsburgh, I believe Rodgers, out of all the other options that were available on the trade and free agency market that were realistically gettable for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year, he gives them the best chance to win, all right? And part of the reason for that is his reported contract, all right? 1 year, $10 million base salary. That's what he said on the Pat McAfee show that he would accept if he were to sign with an NFL team this year. And then Ian Rappaport reported today that not only is it going to be $10 million base salary, but it's going to be along with incentives based on performance. So we'll see exactly what the details are in the coming days when those get announced. But just so you guys know, that is half the money per season that the New York Jets are paying for Justin Fields, where if you've been watching this channel over the last several months, you guys know my feelings about Justin Fields. I think he struggles reading defenses. I think he isn't the most accurate quarterback in the world. I don't love his pocket presence. I don't think he has a very good feel for the game, and through 4 years of his NFL journey, he has not established himself as a bona fide franchise quarterback, in my opinion. You're getting a top 10 quarterback in NFL history that can still throw the piss out of the football, by the way, for half the money the Jets paid Justin Fields. I think that is an absolute steal when you look at it from a value perspective. And you look at the other quarterback options the Steelers had at their disposal this year, the best ones that were available. Now, I do think Geno Smith is probably a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers is right now, but you would have had to pay him a brand new contract like the Raiders did. And if you did that, you wouldn't have been able to make some of the other moves that the Steelers made this offseason, like probably trade for DK Metcalf. So I would rather have Rodgers with Metcalf versus Geno Smith and George Pickens. That's just my personal opinion. But the fact that you're getting Rodgers for $10 million, I think, makes him the better value. And I definitely think Rodgers is better than guys like Sam Darnold, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Daniel Jones. Sam Darnold, in my opinion, is the only one that's questionable there. But I think Darnold is going to play worse this year in Seattle than he did in Minnesota now that Kevin O'Connell is no longer calling the plays, and he's no longer got Justin Jefferson to throw the ball to here. So I think out of the bunch of receivers that the Steelers had to choose from here to try and win a Super Bowl in the short term for Cam Hayward and the rest of the, established veterans on this roster that deserve a title like TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, etc., I think Rodgers gives the Steelers the best value. I've been saying that since before NFL free agency. You guys will remember that we predicted the Steelers would sign Rodgers when everybody else was saying they're going to re-sign Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. And it seems like the Steelers agreed with my logic, which is why Rodgers is now the starting quarterback of this football team. Another thing that I want to mention about Rodgers here, guys, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers, and one of the reasons why I like this signing, is that Pittsburgh is not asking Rodgers to be what he was, an MVP caliber quarterback with the Green Bay Packers. That's not what the expectation is, all right? They're not expecting him to come in here and be a savior and be an MVP caliber quarterback and be a top 5 caliber guy like he was previously in his career, okay? And the reason why they're not expecting him to do that is because this is a defensive-centric team with an elite defense led by TJ Watt. And when TJ is healthy, this team and this defense, in my opinion, is the best defense in the National Football League. They were the best defense in the league last year before TJ Watt got hurt, and after TJ got hurt against the Eagles last year, the entire season completely crumbled because TJ was not the same player after that injury. Also, the run game this year should be a lot better than it has been in years past. Najee Harris is out the door. Caleb Johnson is in. I think Caleb's a better player than Najee is, and then you still have Jalen Warren, and then this offensive line with young players, a lot of first-round and second-round talent on this young offensive line is probably going to be the best it's been in a very long time as well. So it's going to be a run-centric offense, and it's going to be a defensive-led team. And then you look at the receiver room right now, I think that this wide receiver room is still better than what they had last year with Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin III, and Roman Wilson was not available to you last year. But this year, you got DK Metcalf, who I do think is a better receiver than George Pickens. Calvin Austin III, I still think is a pretty decent receiver. Roman Wilson, you get him this year, and he's looking great at OTAs so far. And then that's not only that, but the Steelers are expected to add another receiver to this group. So the receiver room's going to be better. The run game's going to be better than it was last year. And the defense is going to be really good as well. So because of all this, what the Steelers are expecting from Rodgers is essentially to be a high-functioning game manager, okay? To take care of the football, get the ball out fast, limit negative plays and sacks, and then to make a big throw when needed. Convert a 3rd and long every once in a while. Convert on a 2-minute drill at the end of the game when you need to, okay? And I think Rodgers showed last year that he's still capable of doing all 4 of these things. You guys can take a look here at some of the numbers. 1.8% turnover-worthy play percentage last year. That was top 5 in the National Football League. He also has the best touchdown to interception percentage in league history and the lowest interception percentage in league history. Also, he gets the ball out super fast. He's a savant for this game, guys. His brain is some of the fastest mental processing we have seen in NFL history. 2.69 average time to throw last year in New York. That ranks 6th. He also limits sacks because of his excellent pocket presence and his quick time to throw. It's much lower than what it was with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields last year. And then he still has the arm talent, the arm strength, the easy flick of the wrist to make big-time throws. 26 big-time throws in New York last year. That was top 10 in the National Football League. So I still think Rodgers is more than capable of fulfilling this role here of being a really solid game manager behind a really good run game and an elite defense. And he's definitely got the playoff experience where he's not going to be afraid of that big moment if and when it arrives in the postseason or in the clutch during the regular season, for that matter. That's why the Steelers prioritized him. That's why they chose him and chose to pursue him over Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, all these other quarterbacks, is because Aaron Rodgers fits what the Pittsburgh Steelers are looking for in their starting quarterback this year. And not only that, but I believe the Steelers going into this year with Aaron Rodgers are in the best position to win a playoff game this year since when Big Ben was in his prime and the Killer Bee era was at its highest point with Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown and a really good defense and, of course, Big Ben Roethlisberger as well. All right, I think that this team with Aaron Rodgers, with the defense that they have now, with the run game that I think they're going to have with Caleb Johnson, and what I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be able to provide, some really smart quarterbacking to this offense, not turning the football over, all that different stuff, it's going to provide the Pittsburgh Steelers a chance to win a lot of football games this year. Remember last year, they were sitting at 10-3 with Russell Wilson, no run game, a terrible offensive line because their defense was so good. This year, the offense is objectively better than it was last year And if they can stay healthy, and especially if TJ Watt stays healthy, I think this team is going to put themselves in a position to finally win a playoff game this year. And then at the end of the day, even if I'm wrong on that and the team stinks this year and Rodgers caps the ceiling on this team is drafting their future franchise quarterback next spring. Anyways, when the draft is in Pittsburgh, they have the ammo to trade up for whatever draft pick that they want, for whatever quarterback they want. They're probably going to be trading up in the first round to go get their guy. And, whether Rodgers is good or whether Rodgers struggles, it doesn't really matter. That's going to be what the strategy is for the Pittsburgh Steelers next year. And, so for me, I think that the Steelers are playing with house money here because you are going to be getting your new franchise quarterback next year. You can, bring in a one-year contract with Aaron Rodgers, who is an all-time great quarterback looking for redemption. You can tell he's pissed off and he wants to prove to the world he still has at least one more good season in him. So for me, I'm going to sit back. I'm going to enjoy this ride because, Aaron Rodgers is a freaking Pittsburgh Steeler, man, and I am excited about it. So predict it for me down there in the comments section. Will the Pittsburgh Steelers win at least one playoff game this year with Aaron Rodgers as their starting quarterback? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section for today's pinned question. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And while I'm telling you about PrizePicks today, simply give me a yes or a no for today's pinned question. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at PrizePicks. And PrizePicks is the best place to turn your sports knowledge into cold, hard cash all on your phone. It's a free app to download on your phone right now. And with millions of members, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more than or less than on at least 2 player stat projections for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on PrizePicks, and PrizePicks puts their members first. So all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. PrizePicks also invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. You can even double your money, even if one of your picks doesn't hit. This year's basketball playoffs are headed towards crowning a first-time champion in more than 50 years. The Thunder and Pacers are duking it out. The Pacers took game 1, so don't miss your last chance here to cash in on history with PrizePicks. Pick more than or less than on player stats like points, rebounds, assists, and more for your shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash today. Here's my projection for the championship series here in basketball, guys. Taking the less on points per game average for Tyrese Halliburton. I'm taking the less on what is this, makes per average, 3-pointers per game average there for Nembhard. I'm taking the more on points per game average for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. So you guys can download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup on the PrizePicks app today. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, so now let's get into some of the latest wide receiver rumors for the Pittsburgh Steelers here after the Aaron Rodgers announcement. Because now that Rodgers, the deal is done, they know exactly how much cap space they have to work with and everything here. What wide receiver or what tight end potentially will they bring in? Another weapon offensively are they going to bring in to kind of put the finishing touch on the Steelers offense heading into the 2025 season? Now, a name that has been thrown around Steelers Twitter quite a bit here is Terry McLaurin, because Jordan Schultz reported yesterday that Terry McLaurin is unhappy with the contract negotiations that he is having with the Washington Commanders. McLaurin is heading into the final year of his current contract and wants to get paid a massive extension. Schultz said this yesterday. Sources, Commanders All-Pro wide receiver Terry McLaurin has made it clear to the team that he's frustrated with the lack of progress on a long-term deal. As I previously reported, McLaurin unexpectedly left voluntary workouts after initially attending, and it remains to be seen whether he'll report for mandatory minicamp. McLaurin is entering the final year of his contract. Talks have been minimal. Now, listen, man, scary Terry McLaurin would be a hell of an addition to the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. You can make a really good argument he's better than DK Metcalf. His route running ability, he does it all, man. Rack ability, his ability to make tough catches down the sideline. He's a great route runner. He separates to all levels of the field. Like, he's just a do-it-all alpha number 1 wide receiver and arguably a top 10 receiver in the entire game. And even with bad quarterback play around him, Taylor Heineke, Sam Howell, Carson Wentz, Terry McLaurin has still put up over 1,000 yards receiving in every single season in the last 5 years and put up a massive touchdown number last year with Jaden Daniels throwing him the football with 13 tuds. So this guy is the real deal. And if the Steelers can get him, I mean, Terry McLaurin, DK Metcalf would arguably be, in my opinion, the best wide receiver duo in all of football. But I really doubt the Washington Commanders even think about trading Terry McLaurin. First of all, they love him, and they are trying to win. Just like the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Commanders are in win-now mode. They have a superstar second-year quarterback on a rookie contract that's affordable, and they're trying to make the most of that. And Terry McLaurin is clearly their number one guy, and even though they traded for Deebo Samuel this offseason, he showed last year that he's not the same player that he used to be. And if they don't have McLaurin on that team, guys, I think there's no chance they win a Super Bowl. So they know they need Terry McLaurin this year in order to compete. So I just don't think Washington's going to want to let him go, and they're eventually going to pay him what he wants. Plus, Pittsburgh doesn't really have a wide receiver to trade back. If they do trade McLaurin, I think they're going to want to send him to a team that has a receiver that they can swap in exchange for Terry McLaurin, whereas the Steelers, obviously they just traded for and paid DK Metcalf. They're not trading him away. And then I don't know if the Commanders would really want Calvin Austin III or Roman Wilson in a trade exchange for Terry McLaurin. So I just don't know if the Commanders would choose the Steelers as a trade partner in this particular kind of setup if they do end up trading him. And then finally, the price tag for the Pittsburgh Steelers to acquire McLaurin would be extremely steep. Okay, not only are you going to have to give up a premium draft asset? They might be asking for a first-round pick. And as we discussed earlier in the show, guys, the Steelers are going to be trying to get a franchise quarterback next year. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to give up your first-round pick for a wide receiver. Maybe they would be willing to take him for a second-round pick if nobody else is willing to give up their first. But another thing to keep in mind here, guys, is that Pittsburgh would also have to pay Terry McLaurin an extremely large contract extension, okay? He is one of the best receivers in the game, as I discussed, and because of that, he's going to want to get paid like it. And he is approaching 30 years old, by the way, so he's not getting any younger. But with his production and what he has done in his career, he probably wants to get at least what DK Metcalf got this year with $33 million per season. Who knows? He might be even asking for more than that. You take a look at the highest paid wide receivers per season in the NFL right now. I'm guessing he wants to be on the left side of that graphic. He wants to be in the top 5, at least, highest paid receivers in football. And frankly, with the production that he has put up and the bad quarterback play that he has had to put up with, he is absolutely worth every single penny of that, in my opinion. But because, with the kind of limited cap space that the Steelers have, all this different stuff, it is possible that the Steelers can make the financials work if they trade for Terry McLaurin. They can backload his contract. They can do a bunch of different things to manipulate the cap. But they will have to get creative because, remember, they do want to get a deal done for TJ Watt this offseason as well. And that is their priority, all right? Their priority right now is to make sure that they can get a deal done to keep TJ Watt around because, as we discussed earlier in today's show, he really is the most valuable player on the Steelers roster. It's not Aaron Rodgers. It's not DK Metcalf. It's not Caleb Johnson. TJ Watt is the most valuable asset on this roster because you just look at the results when he's on the field and healthy versus either he's injured or he's not playing at all, and it's just night and day. So TJ Watt, absolutely, if you're trying to win now, and the Steelers are, you have to get that deal done. So that definitely takes precedent, and I really don't think the Steelers would feel comfortable getting a deal done with Terry McLaurin until they have that TJ Watt situation figured out. So let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Would you trade and pay for Terry McLaurin, a second-round pick, and give him $33 million per season, just like you did with DK? Type A for accept or D for decline. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Definitely an interesting discussion. And Ian Rappaport reported earlier this morning that the Steelers called the Atlanta Falcons to see what the kind of availability was for tight end Kyle Pitts. Now remember, Arthur Smith drafted Kyle Pitts and coached him there in Atlanta. But I want you guys to remember, all right, this goes back to the Chris Olave situation, right, when the Steelers called the Saints about Olave. Just because the Steelers called about the availability of a player doesn't mean, A, that player is available via trade, or B, if they are, that a deal is actually going to get done. And personally, guys, I'm not a big fan of acquiring Kyle Pitts. I think he's been a massive disappointment coming out of Florida. He's just not the same player. He was a ball hawk at Florida with that big frame. He was a contested catch machine. He's lost that ability to high point the football at the NFL level. I don't think he's a particularly good route runner. And some people have the idea of converting him just to a full-time wide receiver. and that's an interesting idea, but I don't think he runs good enough routes to be able to be a full-time wide receiver. So he's kind of become this tweener type of player where he's a terrible blocker and he's not that good of a receiving threat. And I just don't think that he's that good of a player. And Warren Sharp had a really good post on X about this, about his production in 2024 being very lackluster. He was the worst. He had the worst receiver error of any tight end. So there's a lot of poor routes run. There's a lot of drops, all this different stuff. He was 41 of 43 tight ends at getting open. So that's among tight ends. That's slower players. So he's not a good route runner. He had a career low 1.34 yards per route run last year. He was number 55 in yards after the catch on short targets for tight ends. That is way down the list. And then he was number 75, one of the lowest in the league among tight ends at run blocking, which obviously is a big part of the Arthur Smith offense. And then by the end of the season, he was even getting outsnapped by the likes of Charlie Warner. I'd be surprised if you guys even knew who that guy was for the final 7 weeks. So Kyle Pitts is not a good football player, guys. He's got a lot of potential, but, the Steelers are trying to win now. And I don't know if they want to give up what the Atlanta's reportedly asking for here, which is a day 2 pick. They want a round 2 or round 3 pick for the likes of Kyle Pitts, for the things that we just showed you on this show, for one of the least productive tight ends in all of football. And I just think there is no way the Pittsburgh Steelers trade, a second or third round pick for Kyle Pitts. Like maybe a second or third rounder for Terry McLaurin, one of the best receivers in the game, but for an underperforming kind of tweener tight end that's not really a good receiver and not really a good blocker, a third round pick for him? Are you kidding me? I think that is a ridiculous idea, and I hope Omar Khan slammed that phone down and hung up the phone when he heard that they wanted a day 2 pick. So now let's shift our focus to another potential target here that is being linked to the Steelers, which is Aaron Rodgers' former teammate with the Green Bay Packers and last year with the New York Jets, Allen Lazard. Now, here's the thing about Lazard. I don't think he's a very good football player. He's a big body, decent run blocker, but he doesn't run good routes. He's got very inconsistent ball skills, had a lot of drops last year. He does have chemistry with Rodgers. Like, he understands Rodgers' quote-unquote language, the hand signals, all the different audibles and checks that he likes to run. But he's just not a very good player. And you look at the numbers with Rodgers versus without Rodgers in his career, it has been absolutely abysmal for Allen Lazard. So, I don't think that it's a particularly great option to be your number 2 receiver now or in the future. Plus, it sounds like Lazard wants to stay in New York. He has tweeted multiple times that he wants to stay there. He took a pay cut to stay there, all this different stuff. So I just don't really think the Allen Lazard thing is probably going to happen. I think the Steelers probably have their eyes set on somebody else at the wide receiver position this offseason. 2 guys that could be gotten free agency right now that I have advocated for are Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen. And after the Rodgers news, guys, I do think it's more likely that the Steelers can land one of these 2 former number 1 receivers. Now, Cooper and Allen are no longer true number 1 threats like they were maybe just 2 seasons ago, but I still think that they're more than capable of being really good route running type number 2 receivers in this offense, opposite of DK Metcalf. And the reason why the Steelers maybe didn't sign them before the Rodgers announcement yesterday was because it's very possible that, you just put yourself in the position of Amari Cooper and Keenan Allen. If you're like past the age of 30, you're in the twilight of your career, you want a chance to not only have an opportunity to play and get targets, but a chance to win. You really want to play with Mason Rudolph as your starting quarterback? I know I probably wouldn't if I were in their shoes, but if I'm in their shoes and I have a chance to be the number 2 receiver and go up against number 2 corners with DK Metcalf on the other side of me with Aaron frickin' Rodgers throwing me the football, Amari Cooper still has some really good foot speed and quickness, and he's a really good route runner that can run the whole route tree. And then same thing with Keenan Allen. He can play inside and out. He can do a lot of different things still, even though he's getting older. But I think with Rodgers, things could really be changing here. And I wouldn't be surprised if we hear some rumblings over the weekend about Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen or both being interested in joining the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. And then in a final kind of wide receiver report that we got this morning, Ian Rappaport reported that Gabe Davis, so the person that came in for a visit yesterday in Pittsburgh, he got a medical check, and apparently he's not fully healthy. There's a reason why the Giants, 49ers, and Steelers all had visits with Gabe Davis, and none of them have signed him. It's because, he tore his meniscus last year. He had a little bit of a PCL sprain as well in his knee, and it's just not all the way back yet. Now, maybe things change. Maybe the Steelers aren't able to land any other, bigger name wide receiver, and they end up bringing in Gabe Davis when he's more healthy closer to training camp. But definitely seems like nothing is imminent between Davis and the Steelers at this point in time. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comments section. Which wide receiver do you realistically want the Steelers to add this offseason? Do you want Amari Cooper? Do you want Keenan Allen? Do you want them to trade for somebody like Romeo Doubs from the Green Bay Packers? Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. Can't wait to see the options that you guys bring to me in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of Steelers Talk. I know today was a little bit of a longer one, but thank you guys so much for sticking with me. There's a lot to talk about these days in Steelers Nation, so type those real ones if you made it to the end of this longer Steelers Talk video, and make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We're going to keep you updated on the latest Aaron Rodgers stuff as we document his first few days as a Pittsburgh Steeler. It's going to be a lot of fun here over the next week with mandatory minicamp right around the corner starting on Tuesday, so click that subscribe button if you never want to miss a moment.